Five.
Morning, everybody. Sean, Dan, and I are here to take you through the day. This is the morning meeting brought to you by Two Way. Our platform is here for peace, love, and understanding, a conversation about the day's events unlike any other. Gentlemen, good day and welcome. And welcome to you all. If you're here on the Two Way platform, raise your hand. We'd love to get some new folks in. Last week, we may have broke all indoor records for new people. And if you're watching on YouTube or X, thank you for joining. Thank you for watching the morning meeting. Don't put smack in the chat. Try to just enjoy the conversation and let it be spirited and aggressive, but not personal and mean. Thank you very much for your attention to this matter. On the schedule today, the president is at the White House, and he has an open press arrival for the president of the Republic of El Salvador. Then he has an open press bilateral meeting with the president of El Salvador at 11 o'clock, 11:05. Then a closed bilateral lunch, no press conference. And then at 3 o'clock, he greets the champions of college football from the Ohio State. Sean, why is there no press conference?
Uh, well, I think because I think they'll accomplish most of that at they'll probably take more questions at the 11 o'clock top of that pool spray than they would in a bilateral press conference where you usually go 2 for 2. So I think it would just be a redundant. And I also think all the questions would be focused on criminals and deportations that they'll probably cover in the first place.
All right, Vice President, no known events today, although I suspect he may well be at these meetings. And then at the end of the week, he goes to Italy.
Well, hold on just a second. The end of that schedule is the president welcoming the Ohio State University. I have a feeling that the vice president may be in attendance for that.
Good point. Thank you for that. Scott Besson is in Argentina, and he's got a 4 p.m. interview with Bloomberg TV. Expect some tariff questions there. The House and Senate are still out.
Hey, can I make one quick point on the schedule because we didn't show it today?
Go ahead and put it up.
Put it up. Take a look. I'll ask you guys the question today because what do you see? Go to the pool.
What I see is tradition reigns. CBS Radio is a radio pooler.
Yeah, but go deeper. It's
Telemundo.
Nope.
AP's not on there.
Nope.
I don't know. I bite.
It's what's not there. There's no additional the addition that they've been adding is the first time that I haven't seen it there.
Oh, the new media person.
The new media, the secondary, which I just thought it's the first time that I haven't seen it. And so my intrigue is, was there not the bandwidth to support it? Did no one ask for it? I mean, again, this was the first time that's happened.
I bet it's just because it's a holiday Monday and they didn't get to it. That'd be my prediction, but we'll see. Good eye. The Premier Xi, as I like to call him, President Xi of China, is on a 3-country Asia swing to countries who, because their countries were with tariffs and have tariffs imposed on them by the United States. He's in Vietnam today, then Malaysia, then Cambodia. We'll talk about that. The lawyers for that tough student who was apprehended off the streets of New England are in court today trying to get her free. And the Facebook antitrust trial in front of Judge Boasberg, currently the most famous district court judge in America, goes to trial today, although there could well be a settlement in that case. The U.S. government under the previous administration had moved to say Facebook shouldn't be able to own WhatsApp and Instagram, and we'll see what happens there. All right. Dan, just your latest view of where we are on tariffs after a weekend of swings, both in the international markets and the administration policy regarding tariffs on my iPhone.
I think they're just kind of feeling out every day. I went back and looked at the art of the deal, the first page of the first chapter. Trump talks about how he doesn't like to have a plan. He likes to kind of feel every day and kind of play it by ear. And you really get the sense. I mean, it was somewhat comical this weekend that they put out the schedule Saturday morning, the announcement, the Customs and Border Patrol about exemptions for the tariffs. Then Trump says, or I think it was Lutnick, no, there are no exemptions. Trump says, actually, we're going to have potentially separate tariffs on the things that he tweeted fake news Then he says we may have tariffs. Like, they're all over the place. And I think the one problem is, and I don't say this to be snarky, his lack of clarity, his lack of details in politics is good because you can't pin him down. He can kind of keep the base with them because there's no real sense of what he wants. The one place you can't do that is the markets. The markets and businesses want certainty, clarity, and an understanding of the plan, and we have none of that.
Just, Sean, before you go, I forgot to mention the Blue Origin launches today as early as 9:30, so we'll keep our eye on that. Sean.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how Katy Perry does in space. If Jeff Bezos is looking for additional recommendations, I have some journalists that would do very well up there. If you wanted to colonize someplace as well. The one thing I'll say that the funny thing to me about understanding Trump, I mean, Dan mentioned the art of the deal. I also mentioned Newt Gingrich was actually said to me the other day, read the art of the comeback too. And I think it's important because so much of what's written and said that he has said in the past is prologue, right? So there was a line I mentioned the other day when Kevin Hassett was coming on my show that I read his book in advance of that. And there's a quote that's in it that's just fascinating. It says this: if I was having trouble closing a real estate deal, I would sue the guy if he didn't give me what I wanted. A threat to would have had no effect. But if I sued him the day before closing and then offered to withdraw the lawsuit as part of the deal, they almost always signed. They knew you meant it. And recalls that when Trump was talking about how to deal with trade during the first administration. And this is, again, just understanding Trump and how he operates is important. That's the old method of let's go have bilateral talks in Geneva is not really his shtick. It's I'll take it to DEFCON 1 and then I'll dial it back. And I think that that's important, understanding where he is right now. So when Howard went out this weekend and talked about putting iPhones, and by the way, as a guy who went out and got a new iPhone ahead of the tariffs, I'm a little burned. But I will say that, at least that I think it was a smart move. But I also think that the idea of talking about how you're going to put it on the semiconductor sectoral going forward is interesting because you've sort of, it's an EKG. You took the temperature down. Now it's going to go back up. And I think that, to Dan's mentioned this before, but the market certainty is what most people are looking for more than anything else.
But it's also businesses. I mean, it was the CEO of DHL came out. It was like, we're getting tired of this. Like, just tell us what the plan is so we can plan.
Right.
But they don't want to say it.
Well, but I think that's also part of the strategy, which is if you don't know, then you got to come back. You got to operate here.
But I think the one challenge with that,
hold on one second. Paul, put up CNBC just for visual, no audio. Go ahead, Dan.
Is that other countries know this, right? They know he doesn't really want to go through with all of this for a sustained period of time. He, I think, hopes that everyone is like Colombia, with all due respect to Colombia, who folded within 30 seconds on taking the immigrants kind of early on in the first week of the term. And Europe, China, they're all digging in. So everyone is to see, do you have the stomach to go through with this for a few months? And our markets and business community is screaming no.
I love how, according to CNBC, the futures are up because of the tariff exemptions that, of course, the White House says don't exist. But that's what CNBC is currently saying. Tariff futures jump on tariff exemptions that don't exist. All right. We'll talk about a lot more about the markets, and we'll check in at 9:30 and see what happens. But I want to talk about Ukraine. We saw not a ton of readout of Witkoff's meeting with Putin. Those talks seemingly, you can take CNBC down, are going to continue. But Sean, where are we after a weekend of violence in which many U.S. officials, including sort of the president, condemned some brutal deaths at the hands of the Russians by the Ukrainian, including children and worshipers. So where are we, do you think, now on Ukraine?
Well, I think that the actions that Russia took after the fact, when they meet with Witkoff and then they go bomb, was highly disrespectful to President Trump. And I think that they're going to pay the consequence for that, because I think Trump has entered this from a place of goodwill, of trying to make it clear that I want to get a deal. And for Putin to do that in the face of a what seemed to be a somewhat productive meeting with Steve Witkoff, I think really is going to piss Trump off, and rightly so. And I hope that he takes some kind of action today to show that.
Dan.
Yeah, he's playing him. Putin's playing Trump. He's
Yeah,
stringing
but
him
that
along.
to me, playing him would have been to just to appease him, to go and to bomb immediately after that. That's not playing. That's sticking your finger in his eye. And if I know anything about Donald Trump, is that he does not take well to that.
Oh, but here's the thing, Sean, he's been doing this. I mean, it just hasn't gotten as much coverage. This was a bigger attack that had more casualties. Since they started these negotiations, Putin has not stopped his military activity. Putin has rebuffed the president's overtures. He said, oh, I need a little more. I need a little more. Well, he's doing what Trump does. He won't define the outcomes he wants. He strings them along with sweet talk. And I mean, it's just been shoved to the side of the news. Putin is playing Trump like a fiddle.
All right.
Again.
Again, we'll keep talking about this, but we're going to get to a bunch of topics. Governor Shapiro over the weekend, arsonist, seemed to have broken into the governor's residence, set a fire. No one was hurt. This will be 103. The governor talked very passionately about how he and his family would not be intimidated from worshiping by an arsonist whose motives we still don't know. 103, please.
If he was trying to terrorize our family, our friends, the Jewish community who joined us for a Passover Seder in that room last night, hear me on this. We celebrated our faith last night proudly, and in a few hours we will celebrate our second Seder of Passover again proudly. No one will deter me or my family or any Pennsylvanian from celebrating their faith openly and proudly. If this individual was trying to deter me from doing my job as your governor, rest assured I will find a way to work even harder than I was just yesterday. This kind of violence is becoming far too common in our society. And I don't give a damn if it's coming from one particular side or the other, directed at one particular party or another, or one particular person or another. It is not okay.
So until we know the motive, if we do know the motive of the alleged arsonist, it's hard to draw every lesson possible. But Sean, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I would echo what Governor Shapiro said. I think it's disgusting. I mean, first of all, I was intrigued by his comments because, as far as I know from every public piece of reporting, we don't know the motive. It just seems like this guy's. I mean, and that needs to be condemned on its face. Like the idea of setting fire to someone's house where their family was inside. I mean, this is deplorable, ridiculous. I don't even know that words can describe what goes through your mind. I saw the imagery of the house afterwards. It's scary as shit to think about being in a house and being engulfed, not just yourself, but the idea of your family. And I can't imagine what the governor's thinking. And you think about all of the other people who don't. I mean, he has state police security, and they didn't catch this. And so you think about a mayor or a councilman who has nothing. I can't, and having personally know what it's like to have people outside your house and thinking to yourself, oh, well, they can't be that nuts that they do something. Once you have a family inside and you're going from thinking about yourself to protecting them. So, I can't imagine what the governor and his family are going through. We have a teenager in Wisconsin that killed his parents in an attempt to apparently gather enough money to make an assassination attempt against President Trump. I think the violence on all fronts is gone way too far, as the governor said. And I hope that this is something that everybody can sort of recognize that this is not how you solve a problem. I'm only hoping, and I say this like that this is a case of mental illness and not somebody who literally believes that this is how you possibly. I mean, I can only think that someone's got to have a screw loose to think that that's a way you solve or address a problem.
Dan.
Yeah, I echo everything that Sean just said. This is a forward-looking political show, so I'm going to speak politically. I am really curious how he takes advantage of this. Donald Trump, when there has been violence against him, has flipped it into it's us against them. Even when the first shooter was not a crazy liberal, he went on the attack, right? They are trying to get me. Shapiro's weakness is one, politically. I said on Friday, questions about would the country tolerate his faith? Is he strong and tough enough? You have an opportunity to go on offense, rally the party, force this to stay in the news. They went after Paul Pelosi. It's also being reported the guy wanted to use the hammer to kill him, right? So it may be the guy had mental, illness. We don't know the motive, but politics is not beanbags. I would try to address your weaknesses and turn them into strengths with this action. And I would try to get everyone else running against me potentially to back me. Yeah, I'm with Governor Shapiro. You can't do this. Again, this is raw politics. This is a political show. Some people may vomit at the way I'm talking, but I'm curious.
I think you're right. This is why, despite the outrageous nature of what happened, we're talking because it is a political show. I want to just ask you, because I found this fascinating. Like I said, there's nothing, and again, we don't have the information the governor has, right? Because when you're the target, and obviously the state police report to him, he knows things we don't know. I actually, Dan, I think just on its face, the idea that somebody wants to set fire to your house, full stop. You don't need to go any further. But when he started getting into the religious stuff, I said to myself, I hope that he has some intel, because this is where he might have jumped the shark. If this guy is just a lunatic of some sort, or whatever, and he injected the religious piece into it, I think that is a danger, because that he didn't need to go there. Full stop. He could have said, like the idea that you come to burn down my house with my family in it. What kind of person are you? Where have we gone? Blah, blah, and then done exactly what you're saying, Dan. As soon as he started making it religious and based on his faith, I started to say to myself, boy, you better hope you're right on that one.
I have two thoughts about it besides what you guys said, and I associate myself with what you said about how horrible it is. One is, I don't understand how somebody could walk into the governor's mansion. I just don't understand it. From what we know, the guy was not some master criminal, so I'm concerned about that. And two, it's just a reality. If you're Jewish American and you want to run for president, you're going to have to be worried about your security, even if you've got state troopers, even if you get Secret Service protection. And so I just wonder how this event may weigh on his decision about whether to run for president or not, because he'll be courting danger for himself and his family if he does run.
Well, the latter part, Mark, is the key thing. One of the things that I used to tell people when I was in the White House, they say, "Are you worried? Are you worried about your security?" I left for the office at 5 a.m. I came back between 9 and 10, and the back door of my office was 20 feet from the Oval Office. I was like, if they get me, we got bigger problems as a country. But I worry about my family because there's nothing there, right? And that's the one thing that's in the back of your head. It's like one of the things that we talk about with Joe Biden. If you want to run and you knew all the baggage your family had, that was on you. And if you're Shapiro and you're thinking to yourself, I can handle this, I'm the tough guy, but you have to worry, you have a detail and you are secure, but your kids and your wife and your family, they might not, or they might be more vulnerable. And that's what I think weighs on you more than anything.
Yeah.
Look, it happened in the White House with Obama when the guy hopped the fence and got all the way into the White House and got to the stairs going up.
Insane. Insane. All right, we're going to try to get to four more topics before halfway point. So we'll try to keep it short. Again, if you want to be in on the conversation, you're here on the YouTube, on the two-way platform, raise your hand. There's a bunch of legal cases. My predisposition, as you all know, is to not talk about the district court decisions or even the intermediate Supreme Court decisions, because it's a long way to go. But this case of the Maryland father, who is currently still in an El Salvador prison, which will be discussed at the White House today for sure. The Supreme Court said 9-0. District court's right. You got to bring him back. And the administration's taking kind of an incredible position, which is they're not really saying we need to bring him back. They're saying if he comes back, we got to let him in, basically. But they're interpreting the Supreme Court decision in a way. And I'm curious whether the Supreme Court agrees with the interpretation. The district court judge probably won't. The hearing's not until tomorrow. I continue to say all these things should be adjudicated more quickly. Dan, I don't want to go like Harvard Riel here on deep on this thing, but what's your view of the administration's posture on this case right now?
I think just more broadly speaking, it's so fascinating their public posture versus their posture in legal filings. They're not the same. And so I don't know. I mean, to your point, trying to guess where this comes from, I think it's a bad look for them. I'll just say that. I think this is one of those cases that is not the one that they want front and center with the public.
Sean?
I will admit on the forefront, I've not been, I followed this as a normal viewer, but I think this is, to your point, where the Harvard people are going to make their money. Because there are nuances in the law about what, about your rights if you're here illegally or if you entered the country illegally or, what have you. What I'm fascinated about more than anything, and maybe this is just my brain, is I get if you're from El Salvador and you come into this country illegally, we send you back to, or Venezuela, and we send you back to Venezuela. I don't understand how we can send you to another country. Like, it's like, you're from Venezuela, we'll send you to El Salvador. I get us sending you home. That's fine with me. I have no problem. You enter this country illegally, bye-bye. But I am intrigued, and that's why I don't understand from a legal standpoint. I don't understand why the lawyers aren't saying, hey, I get it. He was in the country potentially not legally, or he lied on something, or he had some associations, or he lied on his visa. Okay. But I don't understand how you get to send him to another country. That's just my sort of intrigue in this whole case.
Yeah. All right. We'll keep following that. We'll be talking about that this week, too. 104A. President had his physical on Friday. Yesterday, the White House put out a couple pages of information, memo from the doctor, with, by the standards of these reports, was relatively detailed. Had a lot of data, test results. The only sort of gratuitous flourish was saying the president's in good health because he wins a lot of golf tournaments on his own properties. But a couple pages of statistics. The doctor so far has not been made available. As a student of this topic of the public's right to know about the health, mental and physical health of the president, I still would like to see a doctor brief, and the news organization said not political reporters, but medical experts, to find out if all of this is true. I've not even seen a single story saying what's not included here. In other words, what don't we know after this report? And I'm not a medical expert, so not my job. Sean, are we done with this story? Is the White House press corps going to drop it, and the public will know what the president's doctor said, and that's it? Or are there more beats to come here?
I mean, first of all, I think that's the most detailed medical record that we've ever seen from President Trump. I would imagine, again, I can't say that I'm an expert on reviewing medical records, but I believe that that is more comprehensive than I saw from the Biden administration.
Yes, it is.
And so I don't know what more we should get. It goes through all of his, all of his blood work, all of his cardiovascular. I mean, I've never seen anything that comprehensive on paper been issued before. I will say this to your comment. And again, these are my comments, not reflective of the Department of Defense or the Department of the Navy. But for a United States Navy captain to sign that, please, I just don't think you should ever question a naval officer's integrity when they sign that, and he did. He signed that document. So
I'm not saying there's anything factually wrong with it, but it might not have every answer in it.
Well, of course, it doesn't have every answer, but it's
right.
I mean,
I wasn't challenging the accuracy. I mentioned.
Oh, that's okay. I was about to, so don't worry about it.
There was one rhetorical flourish, and I just want I want the New York Times or somebody else to say, show it to a bunch of doctors and say, what don't we know about the president's mental and physical health after reading this report? Seems like.
Fair enough, but I think to be blunt, after 4 years of not asking a single question, the idea that the media would now sort of question a 3-page detailed document would seem at the height of hypocrisy.
Well, look, and of course we paid a price for that, because Biden was declining. So you're right. Look, all I'll say on this is, yes, a Navy captain signed it. Yes, I would like to think it's all. I don't believe he's 224 pounds. I mean, He looks, I think if anything, he's lost a little weight. Look, in my opinion, he looks obese.
What do you think he weighs? What do you think he weighs, Dan?
250, 260. He's 6'4". Just look at his frame. Again, this is my own opinion. I do not believe, because I just believe his weight is significantly heavier. He's old.
But wait, so right now that shows him down.
Diet.
That shows him down 20 pounds from where he was I think it's 4 years ago. Oh no, yeah.
No. I know it's up from 4 years ago, I believe. It's down from when he was weighed in Atlanta. See, Dan, he was weighed in Atlanta, and they couldn't control that.
Oh, that's right.
I
Dan,
Atlanta.
and Dan, he
yeah,
was weighed.
I know,
He
Mark.
was weighed in Atlanta. He was weighed in Atlanta,
I
and
am
it's in this
simply,
ballpark.
And he's looked slimmer.
oh boy, I will say this: he is very good with his clothes at masking. But when he plays golf, you can't mask it because you have less on. I'm just telling.
Dan, would you
my
give
opinion.
would you give $100,000 to Donald Trump's favorite charity if he does a public weighing, and he's right?
If I could buy this, if it was a true scale that was, yeah, I'd bet $100,000 he's not 224. Yep.
All
So,
right.
as somebody who's done 26 years of weigh-ins with the Nate, I mean, the idea that that's just not.
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
I'm just saying,
All right.
like that. That's
Two more.
not.
Two more. All right. Two more topics. Maybe we'll come back to this. Maybe it'll come up at the next briefing. Bill Maher had dinner with Donald Trump, and he came out of it reviewing Donald Trump's personality pretty much the way Sean Spicer, I think, would review Donald Trump's personality, or anyone who's a member of Mar-a-Lago. Here's Bill Maher talking about his dinner with Donald Trump.
At one point, we were walking through it is an amazing tour of the whole house. And I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but it must have been something with the 2020 election, because I know he used the word lost. And I distinctly remember saying, wow, I never thought I'd hear you say that. He didn't get mad. He's much more self-aware than he lets on in public. Look, I get it. It doesn't matter who he is at a private dinner with a comedian. It matters who he is on the world stage. I'm just taking as a positive that this person exists, because everything I've ever not liked about him was, I swear to God, absent, at least on this night with this guy.
Dan, you ever met Trump?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
When I raised money.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
He's incredibly gracious.
Yeah.
He's charming. He's funny. He does ask you a lot of questions. Like, I mean, I've always said he's an amazing political athlete. I mean, I have tremendous respect for him. What Bill Maher described is what I've seen, and people that I know who used to spend a ton of time with him would say the same exact thing.
Sean?
So there's two things that I think are funny. When people say, why does he want to meet with Putin or Xi or Kim Jong-un? It's for that reason. When Donald Trump gets in a room with anybody, he can win them over. He is unbelievable when it comes to one-on-one politics. And I know that Bill Clinton has a very similar quality, where there are certain people that when you're in the room with them, you are the only person in the world, and he makes you feel amazing. And I think that's part of the reason he loves getting in the room with the most difficult people in the world, because he believes, and not just believes, but I think he has proven that when he can go one-on-one with some of the most toughest individuals, business leaders, world leaders, he can win them over. And that was proven, obviously Bill Maher's a comedian. But what I actually thought, and that Maher posts the full 12-minute clip on his Twitter, and I would urge you to go watch the full 12 minutes. There's a point further down where he says, I voted for Hillary Clinton, I voted for Barack Obama, and I could never have had the conversation I had with them that I did with Donald Trump. And for all the people who say that he doesn't like condescending or opposing opinions, that's just not true. And It was funny because to Maher's last point, I will make this. I remember Chuck Todd going on at one point and say, what do you think about a guy who can't laugh? And I thought to myself, have you ever been around the guy? He's one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. Sometimes maybe too much on some of the jokes that he tells. But the idea is that, I mean, Maher's right. He lights up a room. He's funny as hell. And I'm glad that Maher got to see that. Yeah. He goes on and he says, here are my areas of disagreement with him. But at the end of the day, this is what I wish more people got to see.
Yeah. I'm going to make one point, and then we're going to move to our last topic and then take your questions. You don't, and Dan, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. Don't take what Maher's saying just he's a gracious host, which he is, but it's more than that. I think the important thing to focus on, if you want to understand Trump, because you don't like him, is when he said he's self-aware. Okay. That's what people, I think, miss about Trump. Yes, I agree with Maher. The gap between public and private is very upsetting to a lot of people. But this is not just a guy who loves being a host. It's a guy who is, in private, self-aware. And I'll say to people who worry about a gap between public and private, I give you Hillary Clinton. I give you Mitt Romney. I give you John Kerry. I give you
Bob Dole.
Al Gore, Bob Dole. There's tons of people on the public stage where there's a gap. All right, last question.
Well, Mark, and part of his self-awareness is in 2021 when he asked Susie Wiles to do autopsy of why he lost swing states and what he did wrong. I mean, it was a total self-awareness of that. He got close, but he just did something not right to win.
Yeah. All right. Stephen A. Smith, great guy, lovely commentator on sports. Once again, people are making the mistake of saying, well, Donald Trump, who'd never run for office, could run for president and win the first time. Not as easy as it looks. Mr. Smith says now maybe he will go to Washington. 106, please.
Are you really thinking about running for president? Is this something you think?
Listen, I've been. I have no choice because I've had elected officials, and I'm not going to give their names, elected officials coming up to me. I've had folks who are pundits come up to me. I've had folks that got a lot of money, billionaires and others, that have talked to me about exploratory committees and things of that nature. I'm not a politician. I've never had a desire to be a politician. I just signed a contract extension with ESPN. I am very, very
pretty
happy
good one, too.
With my day job. I'm very happy with my boss. This is a pretty damn good one. Just right. It's a pretty damn good contract. I couldn't be happier. But here's the reality. People have walked up to me, including my own pastor, for crying out loud, who has said to me, you don't know what God has planned for you. At least show the respect to the people who believe in you, who respect you, who believe that you can make a difference in this country, to leave the door open for any possibilities 2 to 3 years down the line.
Go ahead and put up the opening bell while we talk about Stephen Smith, if you would. Sean, how seriously do you take Stephen Smith? 0 being he'll never run, and 10 meaning Donald Trump 2016.
3.5.
Dan.
Yeah, probably about 3.5. I mean, look, he is authentic. He's supremely confident. But I think the thing that people miss about when they compare him to Trump is, Trump had a paper trail of talking about tariffs, of talking about immigration. Trump was more advanced in his kind of like, if I do this, here's might be the foundation of how I would run. And when he came down, he had a real platform down the escalator. I would be curious to see. Stephen A. Smith is a great critic. He's a great soundbite, but he would have to put some meat on the bone about what is the theory of the case, what is the set of problems he's trying to solve. Not to say he couldn't do it, but boy, to walk away from $20 million a year that he just signed for with ESPN, that's he's walking away from generational wealth.
I can't believe you guys said 3.5. I'm not even sure it's 0.5.
So here's the difference.
I mean, you never know.
So we've talked
just to be clear, he might run, but I said Trump 2016 meaning success.
No.
Point
1.22. Look, here's the reality as far as I'm concerned. One, the money, right? So he might run. I think more than anything, he might do the explorative, but ESPN will cut him off immediately as they have to, right? So when you tell people you have to give up the 20 million and you might not ever be able to come back, that is a pretty big disincentive. Number two, we've talked about.
By the way, who owns ESPN? Walt Disney.
Right. The reality of this is that I think the difference with Stephen A. Smith is I think he wants to kind of do this. It's the ego is just so amazing. And he will have, if he did even explore a serious run, he will have a huge pull, because the thing about Stephen A. Smith that's very different is Stephen A. Smith has actual authenticity. And the reality is this: Milli Vanilli has more authenticity than Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom combined right now. And that's what the Democratic field is lacking. But the problem is he will never pull the trigger, because running for president isn't like running for student body treasurer at Thomas Jefferson Middle School. It actually takes putting a team together, raising money, understanding the ballot access issues. So it will never get off the ground, but I think he could have an effect on the field. And the problem is that what's going to happen is most of these people are going to look at his biggest quality, his actual authenticity, and try to fake it. And they will lose spectacularly.
All right. You saw the rocket go up, successful launch. We'll keep an eye on that. And you can see the Dow and the markets so far in positive territory. All right. Take CNBC down. Let's go to your questions. As always, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Just quickly, because I heard from my wife, we are not literally betting $100,000 to the charity of Trump's choice. It was just made clear to me very, very directly that should that actually be
50?
taken up,
you want to do 50?
I stand by what I said. I believe what I believe, but the Turrentine family is not making an official bet.
Okay, that's good to know.
Just 50 grand.
Thank you for clarifying. I was going to spend my morning saying that up. Quentin, unmute. There you go. Quentin, thanks for joining. Tell folks who don't know.
By the way, I have no family around me if you want to bet with me.
What's on your mind, Quentin, about Donald Trump's weight, the rocket, tariffs, whatever you wish. Thank you for being part of Two-Way.
Thank you, Mark. No comment on the weight or all of the McDonald's Trump eats. I wanted to just comment a couple of things about tariffs with Trump and a couple of things I think he's missing just really fast too on his messaging, and something I think the Democrats are missing on their messaging. For Trump, I don't understand. And by the way, Mark, thank you for bringing up Pat Buchanan. You've mentioned him about 3 times in the last month or two. He's always worthy of mention, especially with our current president in mind. I don't understand why Trump didn't carve out exemptions for Greenland and Panama. Again, just for strategic reasons. I think he's missing on that. And I think he's missing on China. One thing, if you think of our trade deficit as a function of wage disparity, I don't know why Trump, trying to stick it to China, why he doesn't try and sell publicly tariffs on China as a way to increase wages for Chinese workers. And I would think he would explicitly talk about how unfair it is that the Chinese make so much less than Americans, and he'll lower tariffs when Chinese people, wage earners, make more money. It would help our trade deficit. It would make us more competitive. It also would stick a needle in the Chinese if he started doing that, and I don't know why he hasn't.
Yeah, okay. Interesting point. Yeah, another point you want to make?
Last one, and this is about the Democrats, and it aggravates me about their message. And I'm not, I support tariffs. I'm not a particularly partisan person, but their message, I think they're blowing it with working class people again. Because think of what they've done for the last 90 days. When Trump wanted to keep out illegal aliens, what do they say? We can't have them out. They do jobs Americans won't do. When Trump raises tariffs, Vietnam, China, Ro Khanna saying you can't do that because it's too expensive to hire Americans to make iPhones and other things like that. And it makes me think to myself, what was the point of the last century for the Democratic Party? What's the point of Bernie Sanders saying we need to raise minimum wage to $17 an hour when you are then going to turn around and say we can't have tariffs because Americans make too much money and therefore too expensive to hire to make all these goods?
Yeah,
I think, yeah.
That's great, Quentin. Really interesting points all. Sean and then Dan. Thank you for that.
Yeah, sure. I think some great points, Quentin. I mean, there's this dichotomy. We need to raise wages, but we lose out to all these other countries because of low. I mean, it all doesn't flow together. And I think there's a couple different things. One of the false arguments that I think we get brought into is, and I've said this before, manufacturing necessarily all mean people making things. There's a lot of automation now that happens in a lot of factories. And I just think we need that. Where we're missing the boat is we're having an argument that says we have to bring everything back and have Americans make it. I do think that we're lacking a manufacturing base, an industrial manufacturing base. It's critical to our defense industrial base, but that doesn't mean it all has to be human made. I do think there's a human element to a lot of it, but we're combining a lot of arguments that don't all go together. And I think you pointed them out well, Quentin.
Dan.
I mean, I'll say two things. I think one, I've said now for the last week and a half that if you were going to do a tariff battle with China, you would go try to make friends with Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia. Where's President Xi going this week? Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, trying to bring them into his sphere. So you're right. Like Greenland, Panama, anyone we want in our corner, why, try to do this? The second thing is, I think with all due respect, Quentin, you're cherry picking from two sides of the party. There's the free trade wing, the Bill Clinton wing, which Ro Khanna is kind of speaking about, which is tariffs are not good, right? And the arguments that they make. But that is not the crowd that turns around and says, raise the minimum wage necessarily to $17. Then there is the Bernie Sanders wing and the Elizabeth Warren wing, and they are very careful on tariffs. In fact, they're getting attacked for saying some of these tariffs are good. Tariffs are a good tool in the tool belt. So the party isn't on the same page, just as the Republican Party has the old Reagan wing that, in the Wall Street Journal editorial board and other things railing against these tariffs. And then you've got the MAGA wing that thinks these things are great. So this issue splits the Democrats just like it splits Republicans.
Can I make one more point, Quentin? Because we've all used the thing, and I can say this as the former assistant U.S. trade rep that sold a bunch of deals. We were bought into this idea of free trade, and I believe in free trade. But I think that what we were sold is a concept that, like, we give you access to our market, our average tariff rate is somewhere around 1.5. We're facing massive tariffs, but we used it for soft power. We described this in the past. I mean, Dan kind of is tangentially referencing that. Part of the reason that we did it was a cudgel to the Soviet Union to say, come do business with us. We'll put it up against them. That's not actual free trade, though. Free trade is I trade with you, you trade with me, we get a deal. When it's you pay less, we pay more, you pay less, that's not really fair or free. That President Trump is trying to correct, that we've used it more as a diplomatic tool in the past, not as a business tool and a national security tool, which is where I think we are now. And that's something that I think is missing from the current dialogue. When you realize how much more, we pay, and I have a whole list of clips that I'll play tonight on my show where whether it's farmers or manufacturing, we get screwed. And at some point you have to say to yourself, is that fair for the US or not? And with respect to, some of the deals you mentioned, and I know some of the people in the media who've never dealt with trade issues before have made fun of, like, there's the McDonald's Island off the coast or whatever. There's what they call the harmonized schedule of trade that they followed, which talks about stuff. And you just go down the schedule, which is where all the, so it's not so much you go through each country and cherry pick. They literally went down the schedule of trading partners and determine that rate based on a formula that they came up with. So you don't go, we don't like you, or we like you more, so we're going to trade it. That was how they sort of developed this idea of what they were going to come up with as a formula to have the rate on the reciprocal side look like.
Quentin,
the only thing is, I keep saying this, if you're in an IP intensive industry or services, you have not been screwed by free trade. Manufacturing has been harmed in some sectors, but I want to keep making this point because I also worked on free trade for years. Certain sectors have benefited huge in this country. Huge.
Quentin, where do you live and how did you become part of Two Way?
Mark, I live in Florida, and I became a part of Two Way by you popped up. It must be the algorithm caught you on YouTube. Yeah. You watching political stuff. I've been on twice. You've had me on to ask questions or to make a comment. Great. Mark, can I mention one thing to Dan?
Yes, sir.
He mentions the things that have been helped or hurt our industries. Look at the end of the Biden administration. Look at the two areas of job growth in this country. It was government and it was healthcare. Healthcare, 50% of the dollars come from government. Those industries are the only things that are growing in this country.
Oh, I think the tech sector would argue with you on that.
Yeah.
The tech sector. Okay. Well, anyway, Hey, Dan, you're great. Mark, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Quinn. Thanks for coming. And Sean. And Sean.
He got muted.
Tom Lewis, Saratoga Springs, beautiful part of America. Welcome in, sir. Thank you for joining. What's on your mind?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
First of all, Sean, I met you years ago with Elise, right, where you had a book at a book signing.
Up there at the Saratoga steeple or horse.
Right. Yeah, that's where it was.
Yes.
So love your platform. The three of you have really educated opinions. And you don't get angry with people who don't agree with you. So, like about a week or so ago, I think Mark had asked Batya, what do you think separates the two different sides? Right, that's a paraphrase. And so I would say that you can tell by the tone of someone's voice if they accept that, people are entitled to their own opinions and don't get angry. And the three of you never do that. You all have reasons, for your opinion. And I've always liked to have a conversation with the never Trumpers. I mean, I'm a three-time supporter, just as long as you don't get angry at me. So I would just, make that observation about why this platform, gets more and more people every week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Is that all you wanted to say, or do you have a question as well?
Yeah, I would ask all of you that granted that I'm biased, but it seems to me that people who hate Trump will never agree with almost anything he does, and they always look for a reason. But again, I mean, I admit, I have a biased point of view. I don't see most people on the right. So I would ask about all three of you, is there any legitimacy in my observation?
Dan.
That some people just can't get past Trump the person. Is that what you're saying, kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there were some people, that way, right, with Obama. But
Sure.
It seems to me there's a whole lot more of that on the left than on the right. That would be my question of you.
I think, look, the last, I don't know how many years this has been a brewing thing. I mean, I'll just ask you, during Joe Biden's 4 years, did you ever hear Donald Trump say that was what he did was anything, like woke up during the day, that was a good move? No, right? Trump's brand was always like failure. It was wrong. Even when he passed bills, he's like, I actually, would have done the infrastructure bill bigger and better. Like, it was always trying to one up, right? And I get it. It's his brand. I've said this repeatedly. The Democratic Party has to move past the Trump derangement syndrome. Like, they just have to. They've tried it for 9 years. They've just beat it into the ground. And when we've been successful is when we have focused on the real lives of real people. So
now, that's my point. That's why I love your platform, because you could do that.
Yeah.
Sean.
Yeah, I generally agree with you. I think I have found, I mean, I philosophically disagree with people on the left, and ideologically on fiscal issues. But I mean, I respect the idea that they've got an opinion. I actually have said this before. I abhor people who burn flags, but I believe that the First Amendment gives us the right we have to defend which we hate the most. I think we've watched the folks on the left who love to preach tolerance have that interpreted to, we tolerate everybody who agrees with us and we denounce. I mean, I've been more college campuses with riots, and it's just amazing for people who preach tolerance how little they practice it.
Yeah.
That's
Tom,
certainly
thanks.
my view.
Tom, thank you. Appreciate you coming on and being
Thanks.
Hey, Tom, can I ask you one personal question? You
sure.
mentioned how we first met up there. Are you guys and the people in the Saratoga Springs area excited that Elise is back representing you? Were you disappointed that she didn't get that UN slot? How is that going over with the faithful?
I have really strong opinions. I've been very involved in Saratoga County politics for 30 years. I met Elise even before she ran. And so I've known her. She's actually phoned me a few times. Years ago, I was down at the New York Senate. So I was so happy for her when she got appointed, because I saw how that would open up huge opportunities for her. So I think I cared more about her than the district, because I have somewhat of a personal relationship. And so I have some, small insight into what, went down as to why, Trump had to do what he did. I mean, obviously, they need the majority. So I'm happy to have her for the district. And just my gut instinct is she's going to end up with something better. Let's take a look at Lee Zeldin. Zeldin ran for governor, he lost. Well, look at where he is now. So I just think that Elise is, so bright she will end up with something better. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Tom, thank you. Very nuanced answer. Thank you. Appreciate you for coming on. Zach, come and tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind.
I'm in Buffalo, New York, originally from Alexandria. So by Sean. You were talking actually the other day about the CYO. I got a picture back here of my CYO 8th grade.
Who'd you play for?
St.
Okay,
Rita's.
yeah, you're right near my house.
Yep. Yeah. So okay, I guess my one comment that I think that people kind of miss out is Trump's going to be president for 4 years. That's it, right? So all of these tariffs, right? It takes a long time to actually build a factory, to implement these things. By the time, and there might be some token examples of this, but by the time 4 years around, or after 4 years, nothing really would have been done. And I'm sure policy's not going to maintain. I don't think that in the next administration, tariffs are going to continue.
So I
All
will
right. Go ahead,
say
Sean.
this. I wish that we could back it with more policy, right? In other words, I think that there should be tax incentives and other regulatory relief that would incentivize a company to come here, because you're right. Tariffs can go up and down. You can declare or undeclare an emergency, and it takes a while to do that. But if I, as a business owner, knew that there was regulatory relief and other tax policy that would incentivize me to build here, etc., innovate here, I would do it. And I think that's where I hope that they couple. And that's one of the things on immigration, too, that I have been saying for a while. We've got to actually take advantage of having a Republican Congress and codify a lot of the things that we want and believe into law so that it's not all just done through executive order.
Dan.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. And remember, the Biden administration kept the China tariffs on, a lot of them, during their 4 years. I think some of that was fearful of being seen as being weak on China. But I said what I said a few minutes ago. This issue is not partisan. It cuts across interesting lines. Neither party is completely unified on it. And I actually think the Democrats, as a rule, have been fairly quiet on this.
Zach, thank you. As you guys know, I don't like to speculate law, but Sean, what happens if, however long it takes, the Supreme Court says the president does not have the statutory or constitutional authority to impose these tariffs? What happens then?
I mean, from all of my degrees from watching Law and Order.
Well, no, but I mean, forget the legal side, just on the policy.
Politically.
Well, no, I mean, first of all, I will say this. If that were to happen, I think they immediately go off. But the bottom line is the law is written passed by Congress to give the president the authority to do it. So I think I'd be hard pressed as a layperson to see how the court can say Congress gave you the authority to do this, but we don't like the way you're doing it. In fact, based on the court, the way that they've ruled recently, it would blow my mind. Because it actually isn't the president making something out of whole cloth. He's actually basing his actions on law and authority handed to him by Congress.
Mark, I think if that happened, it'd be really interesting, because I think Trump would say Congress needs to, pass something to give it. I think the House would. To see them getting 60 votes in the Senate, I don't see it. No. I think it would be, I think, tear the Republican Party apart a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I think. Jackie, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good Monday morning, in fact. I'm out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A couple of comments. I actually don't even know where to start. I have a whole list, but we're going to keep it really short. Dan, you made a comment about the technology sector over the many years has done fine. Speaking from somebody who was in the technology industry for over 30 years, I can't tell you how many times I've trained my replacement who was located in China, India, Poland, and then I was summarily dismissed. And that happens to a lot of the workers. So yes, while the owners, they might be doing fine, the workers in technology, they were really screwed over the last, I don't know, not to mention the theft, the IP theft that's been going on. And we have no recourse in places like China. So to say that, to make that comment, Dan, while I don't agree with you on much, I do appreciate your point of view, but I do think you're wrong on this one.
Well, yeah, sorry.
Nope, that's okay. And then my other point is, okay, I'm going to be a little snarky here. Whitmore is the governor of the great state of Michigan, is she not?
Yes.
President Trump is the president of these United States, is he not?
Yes.
Why is it she is getting ostracized? And I don't have any feeling for her one way or the other, but why is she getting so ostracized by the Democratic Party for going to visit the president in his office when he is the president of this is everything that's wrong with politics right there. That she's trying to make a deal for her state. She has to deal with the president. She goes to deal with him, and then they just crucified her. I'm shocked. I shouldn't be. I don't know why I'm shocked. And then my last point is Tesla dealerships. And again, I'm not a fan of EVs. I live in Pennsylvania. They don't work so well here, but they've been firebombed for weeks with nothing being said. The governor's mansion gets torched, which is completely wrong, understood. But it's all wrong. It's all wrong. But people aren't coming up to say anything about it until it actually affects them. So those are my points.
Okay. Sean.
First of all, I'll let Dan comment on what Whitmore more as far as what the party. I think my guess is that the Democrats are upset she didn't speak out in the Oval Office when she saw certain things happening, which I'm with you on this, Jackie. At a certain point, if you walk in the Oval Office and started throwing a hissy fit, they'd summarily ask you to leave and never come back. There, the Bill Maher clip we played at the front is the thing. There is an aspect of doing business. To your point, like Gavin Newsom, Governor Cuomo in New York got this to some degree during COVID, which is, hey, we have a responsibility to our constituents. And, and so I don't know why people are that upset that they actually have to go do business, because the federal government and the states have a responsibility to each other in terms of funding and action. So I don't fault any governor for going to talk to any president. I mean, this is kind of insane the way that's happening. I will say this, and I agree with you, Jackie. I think, look, full stop, all violence is wrong. I've been 100% clear on this for decades, probably. But it is interesting how the media, for obvious reasons, seems to place greater weight on violence and acts of extremism when it's focused on one side versus the other, right? How many assassination attempts have there been on President Trump? And yet there is very little concern from the media as to some of the rationale, the security precautions, the follow-up. I mean, it was sort of like, move on. Okay, yep, we almost got him. We almost got him again. We almost got him again. And there's a third kid who literally killed his parents in Wisconsin because he wanted to attempt to kill the president again. Scan attention to that. So it's all wrong, but it is amazing because of their personal hatred of Trump and people on the right, how much more they will excuse it or give it any attention.
Jackie, thank you. Grateful to you for coming in. Sean, what do you have on tonight?
It's me, baby. I'm going through the clips of the weekend. This is it. You're looking at it. Mondays are solos, so I go through it all. You're going to break it all down.
All right. It's like Spalding Gray monologue, one-man show. 5 o'clock tonight on this network, two-way, Meghan McCain, our friend and colleague, is on with her latest episode of Meghan McCain's. James Kirchick, the reporter and New York Times bestselling author, they will be talking about everything in the news in the way only Meghan can. So please watch that at 5. And then immediately after Meghan's program, stay right on Two-Way, because I'll be back with Two-Way tonight, where we will round up the day, including the president's time at the White House and the Ohio State and the El Salvador, and expect some other developments between now and then. And then the three of us will be back here in 23 hours to cover everything in space and here on Earth. Thank you very much for participating. No bets, no wagering, just good, clean fun.
50 grand.
I'm in the doghouse. I'm now.
13 family.
Thank you all for being part of Two-Way, and we'll see you in just a bit. Have a great day.